The slap of plastic against tile echoed through the mall as her shopping bag hit the floor and split open. Shoes, groceries, a small, cheap lipstick. Everything rolled across the marble, like her dignity was on sale. "Are you deaf?" the man barked, his voice booming off glass and steel. I said, "Move. Women like you don't belong in places like this." Heads turned. Phones tilted up. Security glanced over, but didn't step in yet. The woman in his way didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't even bend to pick up her things. She just stood there, calm, silent, eyes steady, like she'd heard this all before and survived worse. "Pick it up," he sneered, nudging one of the fallen items with his shoe. "Oh, wait," his mouth curled into a cruel smile as recognition flashed in his eyes. "Of course. You can't. You're too busy being a victim, right, Emily?" Now people really stared. Ex-wife. The word moved through the whispers like smoke. He took a step closer, breath hot with arrogance. "My ex," he announced proudly, as if he'd just spotted trash from his past. "Left me with nothing. Now she's back here, still broke, still pathetic, still." He gave her shoulder a sharp shove. Nothing. Emily's body swayed, but her feet didn't move. No flinch. No tears. Just that same unsettling calm. If you were watching this happen in front of you, right now, what would you do? Interfere or look away and pretend you didn't see it? A teenager near the food court chuckled nervously, filming on his phone. A mother pulled her little girl closer, whispering, "Don't look." And the man? His name was Jason. To the crowd, he was just an angry guy having a bad day. To Emily, he was the man she once called her husband. The man who had broken far more than shopping bags. "You can't even fight back," he scoffed. "Some things never change." But something had changed. Not that he could see it yet. Because under the thin, worn coat, under the quiet, under the history written all over her tired face, Emily was holding a secret. A new life. A new name. And a new ring, hidden carefully beneath a pair of plain gloves. Outside the glass entrance of the mall, a black car turned into the drop-off lane, its windows dark, its engine quiet, but unmistakably expensive. Inside, Jason reached down, pinched her fallen lipstick between two fingers, then flicked it into the trash. "That's where you belong," he said. Emily finally spoke. Her voice was soft but clear. "You shouldn't have done that." He laughed. "Or what?" She didn't answer. She just looked past him, through him, straight toward the main entrance. The automatic doors hissed open. Polished shoes. Tailored suits. 3 men in black stepped in, scanning the crowd until their eyes landed on the woman picking herself back up. "Ma'am," one of them said into a discreet earpiece. "We've found her." What happens when a man who thinks he owns the room discovers the woman he humiliated now belongs to the man who owns the building? And what if the pathetic ex-wife he just kicked around is married to a billionaire who has built an empire on never letting bullies win? By the time those men in suits reached the center of the mall, Emily's story had already begun years earlier, long before the marble floors and luxury brands. Back when her whole world was a cramped one-bedroom apartment, and the man who just shoved her was the only future she thought she had. Back when she still believed that love meant fixing someone who constantly broke her. She hadn't always been this quiet. Once Emily laughed loudly, dreamed big, and believed people when they said forever. Then she met Jason in this same town, in a discount shoe store where she worked late nights just to keep the lights on at home. He was charming then. He brought her coffee. He waited outside after her shift. He told her she was different from other girls, so soft, so kind, so understanding. Back then, soft sounded like a compliment. It wouldn't stay that way. They married young. No white dress, no big party. Just a courthouse, a simple ring, and promises whispered over cheap pizza afterward. "I'll protect you," he said, handing over hers. "You'll never have to worry again." The first time he raised his voice, he said it was stress. The first time he broke a plate, he said it was an accident. The first time he grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave a bruise, he said, "Look what you made me do." And she believed him, because no one had ever taught Emily that love and fear cannot live in the same room. Months turned into years. Jason worked odd jobs, always quitting because no one respected him. He blamed his bosses, his co-workers, the system. And whenever the frustration boiled over, he blamed Emily. "If you made more money, if you didn't nag so much, if you were worth something, I wouldn't be stuck like this." She worked 2 jobs. He worked on excuses. Late one night, After she dragged herself home from a double shift, she found him on the couch, laughing with friends, empty beer bottles on the table. Her heart sank. There was a bill stuck to the fridge with a red notice on it. Jason, the rent. He didn't let her finish. Relax, he snapped. Why are you always so dramatic? Her chest ached. Her feet hurt. Her eyes burned. But still, she apologized. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm just tired. He smirked. You're always tired. Maybe if you were stronger, we wouldn't be in this mess. The thing about toxic love? It doesn't break you all at once. It chips away, word by word, night by night, until you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. If stories like this already feel a little too real for you, and you believe more women need to see that walking away is possible, stay with us till the end of this video. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that might be the push someone out there needs. The night everything finally cracked, it wasn't a punch or a scream that did it. It was silent. Emily came home early. Too early. She opened the door and heard Jason's laughter from the bedroom, laughter she hadn't heard in months. A woman's voice laughed with him. Her sister's. Her heart didn't shatter loudly. It just stopped. She stood there, frozen in the doorway, listening to the two people she trusted most giggle over her absence. Over her stupidity. Over her. When Jason finally noticed her, he didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. You weren't supposed to be home yet, he said, more irritated than ashamed. Her sister grabbed her clothes, eyes wide, mouth full of excuses that didn't matter. Emily didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just turned around, walked out, and closed the door behind her. That night, she left the apartment with 2 bags and a heart so heavy she could barely carry it. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she was done dying slowly in rooms where her pain was entertainment. But when you walk away from everything you know with nothing in your hands, how do you build a life that doesn't repeat the same story? And how do you ever trust anyone again after the 2 people you loved most proved you meant the least? The bus ride out of town smelled like old fabric and shattered illusions. Emily sat by the window, watching the streets she grew up on slide past like scenes from someone else's life. She had no plan, no savings. No one was waiting for her anywhere. Just a stubborn, flickering belief that somewhere out there had to be a version of her life where she wasn't constantly apologizing for existing. The city she chose wasn't special. It was just the first one on the route. Tall buildings. Too many cars. People who didn't know her name. That anonymity felt like a blessing. She found a room to rent with peeling paint and a mattress on the floor. She took the first job she could, late-night cleaning at an office building that looked expensive enough to have its own zip code. 3rd floor, her supervisor told her. Those people are important. Don't bother them. Don't talk to them. Just clean and leave. She nodded. It was easy to be invisible. She was already an expert. Most nights, the offices were empty when she arrived. But one night, someone was still there. A man in a white shirt, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, staring at a screen full of numbers that didn't seem to impress him. It was nearly midnight. Emily kept her head down, pushing her cart past the glass walls of his office. You can come in, he said without looking up. Her heart jumped. Sorry, sir, I'll just. You'll be here all night if you keep skipping this room, he added, a faint smile touching the corner of his mouth. She stepped in, avoiding his eyes. He watched her for a moment. How long have you been working here? He asked. 2 weeks, she said quickly. I'm just here to clean, sir. I don't want to interrupt. He leaned back in his chair. What's your name? She hesitated. Emily. I'm Daniel. She nodded, gripping the handle of the vacuum a little tighter. He glanced at the clock. You shouldn't have to be here this late, he said. What time do you start? 6, she answered. 2 jobs. She froze. How do you? The look in your eyes, he replied softly. I've seen it before. He didn't push. Didn't ask why her eyes looked so tired. Didn't offer unsolicited advice. He just stood, gathered his papers, and said, I'll work from home after 10 from now on. So you can clean this floor earlier and get some sleep. She blinked. You don't have to do that. I know, he said, grabbing his jacket. Good night, Emily. For the first time in a long time, someone changed their behavior to make her life easier instead of harder. No strings. No guilt trip. No, you owe me. Have you ever met someone who was kind to you in such a small, ordinary way that it almost broke you because you weren't used to it? As weeks passed, their small, quiet exchanges continued. He'd leave her a bottle of water on the desk. She'd line up his scattered pens while pretending not to notice. He had a favorite one he always reached for first. Sometimes when she forgot herself, she'd smile. He always noticed. One night, as she wiped down his desk, she saw the name on a thick folder. Hale Corporation. She'd heard that name on the news. Big deals. Billion-dollar acquisitions. The kind of company people like her clean floors for, not talk about. She paused. "Looks intimidating, doesn't it?" he said from the doorway. She jumped. "I'm sorry, I didn't touch anything." He held up a hand. "Relax. It's just paper. People give it too much power." She tilted her head. "If it's just paper, why do you look so tired all the time?" His smile almost reached his eyes that time. "Because people are heavier than paper, Emily. They're what really keep you up at night." If you were in Emily's place, starting over with nothing, meeting a man like this in the quiet hours of your hardest job, would you let yourself trust him, or would you protect your heart at all costs? Tell me in the comments what you think you would do. The first time Daniel saw her flinch at a raised voice that wasn't even directed at her, something inside him shifted. It happened in the lobby. A manager yelled at a delivery guy for being late. Emily, walking past with her cleaning cart, froze for half a second, just a small, sharp intake of breath, a tiny stiffening of her shoulders. But he noticed, because Daniel Hale hadn't built an empire by missing details. He'd built it by paying attention to what everyone else ignored. "Are you okay?" he asked later that night, when the building was quiet and the world felt smaller. "I'm fine," she answered too quickly, scrubbing the same spot on his desk for the third time. "Emily." There was something in the way he said her name, steady, unwavering, that made it hard to lie. She swallowed. "I used to know someone who shouted a lot," she admitted. "My body still thinks I'm there sometimes." He didn't ask who. He didn't ask why she stayed. He just nodded once. "That won't happen around you here," he said. "Not if I can help it." She gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "You say that like you own the place." He hesitated, then smiled. "Something like that." It took months before she realized something like that meant I own all of this. The offices, the lobby, the company. The Hale in Hale Corporation wasn't just a random name on the wall. It was his. The revelation didn't come in some grand announcement. It came in the form of a newspaper left open on the break room table one afternoon. She saw his face, his full name, his net worth, written out in more zeros than she could process. She almost dropped her coffee. That night, when he walked into his office and found her unusually quiet, he knew before she said a word. "You saw it," he said. Her cheeks flushed. "You're you." He tilted his head. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" "I've been talking to you like you're normal," she blurted. "I am normal," he replied. "The money doesn't change that." She shook her head, backing up a step. "I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't talk to you casually. I clean your floors, Daniel. I'm not." "Less," he finished for her. "You're not less, Emily." Her eyes glossed over. Years of being treated like she was always less than carved deep grooves of disbelief in her. He stepped carefully, leaving distance between them. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to see how you treated someone before you knew what they had," he admitted. "You were kind. You listened. You didn't ask for anything." She laughed bitterly. "What would I even ask for? I don't belong in your world." He studied her for a long moment. "Maybe my world needs more people like you," he said softly. "Have you ever thought of that? If you believe stories where power doesn't corrupt kindness, where billionaires can be gentle and not just arrogant, hit subscribe right now so you don't miss how this one unfolds, because what happens next is where their worlds really collide." The more they talked, the more he saw the fractures in her. He noticed the way she apologized every time she spoke longer than a sentence. The way she shrank when someone bumped her shoulder, even if it was an accident. The way she smiled at his jokes like she was afraid to take up space with her laughter. "Who taught you you're a burden?" he asked once, when she tripped over yet another apology. She stared at the floor. "My ex-husband," she whispered. "And life. And maybe I helped." "How?" "I stayed," she said simply. "Even when it hurts." There were full pieces of her story she still didn't share. Names she didn't say. wounds she didn't describe. But Daniel didn't rush her. He gave her what no one had ever given before, time. Time to feel safe. Time to remember she was more than what someone else said she was. He offered her a job during the day, front desk assistant training, so she wouldn't have to work 2 shifts. It's not charity, he assured her. You're good with people. You're detail-oriented. I need someone like you there. Slowly, Emily stepped out of the shadows of the night shift. People at the office started recognizing her. Good morning, Emily. Can you help with this, Emily? Her name wasn't just followed by sighs and accusations anymore. It was followed by thank you. And somewhere between late-night conversations, early morning coffees, and 100 small gestures of respect, something fragile and terrifying began to grow. Trust. Could a woman who had once been told she was worth nothing really believe that a man who could have anyone anywhere might actually choose her? And if she did believe it, what would happen the day her past finally caught up? The proposal wasn't on a yacht. It wasn't in Paris. It was in the same office where she'd once cleaned crumbs off his desk at midnight. There was a simple ring, a slightly crooked smile from a man who seemed, for the first time, a little bit nervous, and a question that terrified her more than anything Jason had ever shouted. Marry me. Emily's heart pounded in her ears. Daniel, do you understand what you're asking? I do, he said, eyes steady on hers. I'm asking you to build a life with me. Not because I pity you. Not because I'm trying to fix you, but because I'm in love with you. Her throat tightened. No fairy tales, she whispered. No saving. I can't be someone's charity case again. He shook his head. I don't need a damsel, he said. I need a partner. Someone honest. Someone who knows how to survive storms without becoming one. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. I come with baggage, she warned. With bruises you can't see. With nightmares. With an ex who would rather see me dead than happy. He stepped closer, slow enough that she could move away if she wanted. I don't scare easily, he said quietly. And I promise you this, whatever or whoever comes from your past, we face it together. You won't be alone again. Ever. For once, she didn't argue with a promise. She just nodded, trembling. Yes. The wedding was small, private, no magazines, no drones. Just a handful of people she trusted, a simple dress, and a man whose vows didn't sound like perfection. They sounded like commitment. I can't promise you a life without pain, he said at the altar. But I can promise I'll never be the one to cause it. She took his last name, Hale, not knowing that one day, that name would be both her shield and her sword. They decided together to keep their marriage quiet in public. Daniel valued his privacy. Emily valued her peace. No announcements, no flashy posts, no calls back home to the town that broke her. She rebuilt her sense of self in quiet rooms, far from the voices that once called her crazy, dramatic, broken. Months passed, then a year. Sometimes she forgot what it felt like to walk on eggshells. She laughed louder, stood taller. The echoes of Jason's voice faded until one phone call clawed them back. It was from a neighbor in her old town. Your mom hasn't been well, the woman said. She doesn't say it, but she misses you. Guilt washed over Emily. She had left. She had protected herself. But she had also left pieces behind. I should go back, she told Daniel that night. Just for a few days. To see her. To close doors I never really closed. He studied her face. Do you want me there with you? He asked. A part of her screamed yes. Yes, because he made her feel safe. Yes, because his presence turned rooms into fortresses. But another part, the bruised but growing part, whispered, you need to know you can stand on your own feet, too. Not this time, she said softly. I need to see who I am there, without anyone by my side. He nodded, though worry flickered in his eyes. Call me if anything feels wrong, he said. Anything. She promised she would. But promises made in calm rooms don't always hold when old ghosts slam into you under fluorescent lights. So when she walked into that mall back in her hometown, she wasn't just a visitor. She was a test of who she'd become, of what she would tolerate now, of whether the girl Jason once broke was truly gone. If you were Emily walking back into the same town where your worst pain lived, would you tell people you're now married to a billionaire? Or would you keep that ring hidden and see if they'd finally respect you without knowing who stands behind you? Let me know in the comments whose approach you agree with. The mall looked smaller than she remembered. Same cheap food court smell. Same flickering lights in the older wing. Different from her. Emily kept her coat closed, ring hidden under a simple pair of gloves, purse small and unassuming. She didn't want attention. She just needed a few things for her mother before heading to the house. A warm blanket, her favorite tea, tiny ordinary items to bridge years of distance and silence. She stood in line at a pharmacy, mind wandering, when a voice cut through the background noise like a knife. No way. Her body recognized it before her brain did. She froze. Turned. Jason. Age had touched him, but not softened him. Same swagger. Same smug tilt of his chin. Same eyes scanning her like a problem he thought he'd already solved. Well, look at this, he announced, loud enough for nearby shoppers to hear. If it isn't my runaway wife. People around them shifted, interested. Ex-wife drama was better than scrolling their phones. Emily's stomach nodded, but her face stayed neutral. Jason, she said quietly. He stepped into her space without asking. You back because you finally ran out of places to beg, he sneered. City life is not as glamorous as you thought. She took a breath. I'm here to see my mother. That's all. He laughed. Still lying to yourself, I see. The cashier glanced up, sensing tension. Jason puffed his chest. You know what this woman did to me? He asked the room. Walked out. Left me with debts. Broke my heart, then ran to God knows where. He left out the part about the cheating, the shouting, the bruises. Abusers are always excellent editors of their own stories. Emily's instinct screamed, defend yourself. Explain. But another voice, Daniel's, whispered, you don't owe anyone your pain. So she didn't argue, didn't defend, didn't give him the performance he wanted. I'm not here to fight, she said calmly. Let me pass. He stepped in front of her as she moved. Or what? You'll cry. Call the cops? You still think you're someone important. The words stung less than they used to. They were old weapons, blunt and rusty. I don't think I'm important, she replied softly. I know I'm not yours anymore. His jaw tightened. Rejection tasted worse to him in public. He flicked her shoulder with the back of his hand, pushing her just enough to force her to stumble. People gasped. Oh, relax, he called out. She's used to it. The jab was half joke, half confession, and all cruelty. Across the mall, past the jewelry store and the escalators, the black car slid to a stop outside the main entrance. The doors opened. Two men in perfectly cut black suits stepped out, scanning faces. They weren't mall security. They were something else. Is that a celebrity? Someone whispered. Nah, this is the wrong town for that. If you've been following this story so far and it hits something in your chest, make sure you're subscribed. We share stories like this every week, stories where women like Emily stop bending and start standing, no matter who tries to shove them down. Inside, Jason was still mid-performance. You know what the problem with you always was, he said. You think you're better than everyone, walking around like you're too good for the man who fed you. You didn't feed me, she replied. I worked. Wrong move. Truth always pokes holes in the stories bullies tell themselves. His face darkened. He grabbed her bag and flung it aside. It burst open, groceries spilling. How many times do I have to teach you? He hissed. You're nothing without me. From the mezzanine above, one of the suited men spotted the commotion. Tapped his earpiece. Found her, he murmured. Center court. Being harassed. Jason stepped closer, voice low and venomous now that the moment of fun wore off. You come crawling back into my territory and think you'll just walk around like a queen, he spat. You're still the same broke, desperate, pathetic little. He didn't finish, because the air in the mall shifted. Conversations around them fell into an uneasy silence. The sound of disciplined footsteps cut through the chaos as the men in suits approached, parting the crowd without a word. They weren't looking at Jason. They weren't looking at the mess on the floor. They were looking at Emily. How will Jason react when he realizes the woman he just humiliated is the one these powerful men have crossed the city to protect? And what happens when a man who thinks he owns a person discovers she belongs to no one but the man who owns the whole mall she's standing in? Mrs. Hale. The tallest of the three men spoke her name with crisp respect, dipping his head slightly. Conversations around them shattered into stunned whispers. Did he just say, Mrs. Hale? As in Hale Corporation. No way. Look at her. She's plain. That's what some of them were thinking. Ordinary. Too ordinary in their eyes to be attached to a name they'd only ever seen on shiny buildings and financial news. Jason blinked. Who? He scoffed, pointing at Emily. Her. The man in the suit ignored him, eyes on Emily. Your husband asked us to check on you, he said. You didn't answer his last call. Emily swallowed. I turned my phone on silent. Behind her, Jason's laugh cracked. Husband, he repeated. What husband? She lifted her gaze to his. The last thread of fear that had held his power over her for years loosened. I remarried, she said simply. A long time ago. He scoffed, scanning her from head to toe, taking in the worn coat and scuffed boots. Yeah, right, he snorted. To who? A janitor? A bus driver? Before she could answer, the automatic doors at the entrance slid open again. This time, it wasn't another bodyguard. It was him. No suit jacket. Just dark slacks, a charcoal shirt, and a presence that made even the teenagers with their phones out lower their screens for a second. Daniel walked with the calm of a man who never needs to shout to be heard. His eyes passed briefly over Jason, then landed on Emily and softened instantly. He said quietly, as if the whole world had vanished and there was only her. Are you hurt? She shook her head, throat tight. I'm okay. He stepped closer, one hand hovering near her arm, but not grabbing. Are you sure? He asked. I can have him removed right now. Jason's mouth dropped. Removed, he snapped. Who the hell do you think you are? Daniel finally looked at him. For a second. Just enough to make the hair on the back of Jason's neck stand up. I'm the man whose wife you just threw around in the middle of my mall, he said calmly. The word hung in the air like lightning. My mall. Jason laughed once, too high, too loud. You're what? One of the bystanders, still holding his phone, whispered, That's him. That's Daniel Hale. Another added, Hale owns this whole complex. The color drained from Jason's face. No, he muttered. No, this is some trick. It's not, Emily said, voice steady. You always told me I was nothing. That I'd never find better. That no one of value would want me. She glanced at Daniel, then back at Jason. You were wrong. Daniel didn't puff out his chest. Didn't throw his wealth around with showy words. He just nodded once, as if confirming a simple fact. Yes, he said. You were very wrong. Around them, the crowd buzzed. Some watched with vindictive satisfaction. Some with envy. Some with the dawning awareness that they'd just seen a woman stand in the space between her past and present and finally choose herself. If you were standing in that circle, what would you feel most? Secondhand satisfaction watching a bully shrink, or a deep, uncomfortable recognition of how many times you've stayed quiet when someone was being humiliated in front of you? Share honestly in the comments. Your story might be another woman's turning point. Jason's bravado cracked. This doesn't change anything, he snarled. She's still trash. Money doesn't make her. Enough, Daniel said. He didn't raise his voice. But something in the way he said that one word made even security 2 floors up look down. Sir, one of his men stepped in. We have footage of the altercation. Do you want to review it now? Emily's stomach twisted. Old shame tried to creep back in. Public attention had never been kind to her. Tabloids. Gossip. Whispers. Jason sensed it, jumping on her hesitation. See, he smirked. She doesn't want you to see what she's really like. How dramatic she gets. How she... Stop talking about her, Daniel cut in, eyes still on Emily. Start talking to security. He nodded slightly to his men. Escort him to the office, he ordered. We'll handle him properly. Jason stepped back. You can't do this, he stammered. You can't just... I can, Daniel replied. Abuse and harassment have consequences here. Even if they didn't in her past, they do now. As 2 guards flanked Jason, the crowd parted. Some people clapped. Some just watched, eyes wide. Emily stood in the center of it all, hands shaking inside her gloves. Part of her wanted to run. Part of her wanted to scream. But the strongest part, the one she had spent years growing, wanted to stay. What would Daniel do with the power he held now, not just over Jason, but over the narrative that had trapped Emily for so long? And would Emily let vengeance speak, or would she choose something even more terrifying, healing? The security office was smaller than the power inside it. Monitors lined the wall, showing angles of the mall Emily had never seen. Hallways, back rooms, every corner where someone thought no one was watching. Jason sat in a metal chair, wrists resting on his knees, leg bouncing. Still defiant, still loud, still convinced he could control the story. "This is crazy," he barked. "I barely touched her. It was just an argument. My ex-wife loves drama, she always has." He looked straight at the head of mall security, as if expecting an ally. "You know how women can be, right?" The silence that followed was heavier than any shout. A guard pressed play on a video. There he was in crisp, unforgiving detail, grabbing Emily's arm, shoving her, throwing her belongings, mocking her. Zoomed in, looped, undeniable. Her lack of reaction made him look worse, not better. When someone doesn't fight back, cruelty shines all on its own. "That angle makes it look bad," he protested. "You're taking it out of context." "We have audio too," the guard said flatly. Jason swallowed. Next to him, Daniel stood with his hands in his pockets, posture relaxed, but eyes razor-sharp. Emily watched from the doorway, fingers intertwined so tightly they ached. "Look," Jason tried again, words spilling out faster now. "You don't know her like I do. She's unstable. She's always been unstable. Ask anyone back home. Ask her own family." He thought that name dropped would save him. He didn't know Emily had changed the ending to that story. Daniel glanced at her. "Do you want to hear this?" he asked quietly. "We can step out." She shook her head. "No. I've spent enough years outside rooms where people talked about me like I wasn't there. I'm staying." He inclined his head, a small gesture of respect. "Very well," he said. "Call my mother-in-law," Jason demanded suddenly. "She'll tell you. Helen knows what Emily's like. And her sister Claire. They both saw what she put me through." Emily's chest tightened at the sound of their names. Old memories tried to claw their way back, her mother warning her not to provoke, her husband, her sister texting Jason behind her back. Daniel didn't flinch. "Already did," he said. Jason blinked. "What?" "We reached out the moment we knew who you were," Daniel continued. "Just to be thorough." He lifted a folder from the table. "Your ex-mother-in-law said you were stressed but trying," he recited. "Your ex-sister-in-law defended you." A bitter laugh escaped Emily. "Of course. Claire always had her own game." Jason smirked triumphantly. "See? They know she's the problem." Daniel's lips quirked. "They defended you," he repeated, "before we sent them this." He nodded again to the guard. Another video played. Not from today. From years ago. A grainy but clear recording from outside a small apartment. Jason's voice, slurred with alcohol and fury, echoed in the tiny speakers. "You're nothing without me, you hear me? Nothing." A thud. A crash. Emily's smaller frame flinched away, hands raised. Someone in the security room swallowed hard. "We acquired this from a neighbor who recorded it and never had the courage to send it in," Daniel said quietly. "Until now." Jason's bravado crumbled. That's old," he sputtered. "We'd both had too much to drink. That doesn't count." Emily felt tears sting the back of her eyes, not from pain, but from a strange, unfamiliar sensation. Validation. Someone with power believed her, saw what she'd always known, and didn't look away. If hearing this kind of truth, the messy, ugly kind that so many women live through in silence, makes your heart beat a little faster, hit that subscribe button. These aren't just stories. They're a mirror. And sometimes, seeing clearly is the first step to changing everything. Jason shifted tactics. "You have no right to dig into my past like this," he snapped at Daniel. "Who do you think you are, some kind of hero?" "No," Daniel said simply. "I'm her husband." He set the folder down. "Here's what's going to happen," he continued. "You're banned from every property Hale Corporation owns. Permanently. We're filing a formal report with the police, along with the recordings and the witness statements from today." Jason's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. Prison? For this?" "For years of this," Daniel corrected. He looked at Emily again. "We can go further if you want," he said softly. "We can press every possible charge." Or, he hesitated, giving her the choice he knew she needed. We can set boundaries, let the law do its work, and focus on your life now instead of his. Everyone in the room waited. For her. Not for him. For the first time in their history, Emily's decision weighed more than Jason's excuses. What would you do if you were sitting in that doorway, finally believed, finally protected? Would you use every bit of the power now in your hands to crush the person who hurt you, or would you walk away and put that energy back into yourself? Her silence lasted longer than anyone expected. Jason fidgeted in his chair, cuffed by consequences he never imagined would touch him. Security watched the screens. Daniel watched her. Emily watched the past replay behind her eyes. Every insult, every shove. Every night she lay awake wondering if she was really the monster he said she was. I used to think, she began slowly, voice rough, that if I ever got power over you, I'd make you feel everything you made me feel. Jason smirked weakly. There she is, he tried. The real Emily. Vengeful, crazy. Stop talking, she said. He did. The authority in her voice surprised even her. I fantasized about revenge, she admitted. About you losing everything. About you begging. She took a breath. But here's what I've learned, Jason. Revenge doesn't rebuild. It just keeps me tied to you a little longer. And I am done being tied to you. His eyebrows knitted. That's it, he scoffed. You drag me in here, play your little videos, humiliate me, and then what, you forgive me? Her gaze cut through him. I didn't say that, she replied. I said I'm done centering you in my life. I want the law to do its job. I want boundaries. I want you out of my world. But I'm not going to spend one more minute designing punishments for you. You've already spent years punishing yourself by staying exactly who you are. The room was so quiet the hum of the security monitors sounded loud. Daniel's chest filled with a quiet pride. I'll sign whatever you need me to sign, she told the head of security. Filed a report. Enforce the ban. But after today, I don't want updates. I don't want to see his face. I don't want to hear his name unless the law absolutely requires it. The guard nodded, respect softening his features. We can do that, he said. We'll contact you only if necessary. Jason's anger flared again, now that the fear of immediate jail wasn't suffocating him. You think you're so noble, he spit out. You think walking away makes you better than me? She shrugged. I don't care if I'm better than you, she said. I just care that I'm better than who I used to be. As they left the office, the weight in her shoulders felt different. Not gone. Healing isn't lightning. It's slow thunder. But something had shifted. Outside, the mall buzzed with rumors. Did you hear? That guy got taken in by security. Apparently, he used to beat his ex. Can you imagine? Talking to your ex-wife like that, and then finding out she's married to the guy who owns everything. Emily walked past the food court, the fountain, the place where her bag had split open. Someone had picked up her groceries. They sat neatly on a bench, unbroken, waiting for her. A small kindness. She smiled at whoever had done it, even if she would never know their name. Daniel said gently as they reached the entrance, are you sure you want to go to your mother's today? We can go back to the city. You've been through enough. She considered it. The car door opened. The promise of distance, of safety, of retreat. I need to see her, she said eventually. Not for her. For me. I need to walk into that house as who I am now, not who I was when I left. He nodded slowly. I'll be right beside you, he said, unless you'd rather go in alone. She thought of the girl who'd walked out with 2 torn bags and no one beside her. She thought of the woman now, ring on her finger, power in her spine. I want you there, she said, but not as my shield, as my partner. If you've ever had to go back to a place that broke you, home, school, an old job, stronger than when you left, what gave you the courage to walk through that door again? Tell me in the comments. Your answer might give someone else the strength they're looking for. As they drove to her mother's small house, the town pressed in with memories. The park bench where she and Jason once planned a future that never came. The corner store where she'd hidden tear-streaked eyes behind sunglasses. The street where her sister had hugged Jason a little too long goodbye, back when Emily still thought it was just affection. The house looked smaller, too. Faded paint. Overgrown bushes. The porch light flickering, as if undecided about doing its job. Emily stood at the gate, heart thudding. You don't owe anyone here your pain, Daniel reminded her softly. Not even out of guilt. If at any point you want to leave, we leave. No explanations. She nodded. I know, she said. This time, I'm choosing to walk in. That makes all the difference. But would the people inside that house be willing to see the woman she'd become, or would they cling to the broken version of her that made their lives easier? And if they chose the past over the present, was she finally strong enough to walk away without shattering? The door opened before Emily could knock. Her mother stood there, smaller than she remembered. Lines deeper. My eyes are more tired. Emily, she breathed, hand flying to her chest. You came. For a moment, all the years between them blurred. The scent of her childhood house, old wood, laundry soap, something simmering on the stove, wrapped around her like a ghost of comfort. Then her gaze flicked past Emily to Daniel, standing a respectful step behind. This is, her mother asked, uncertain. My husband, Emily said steady. Daniel. No hiding. No half-truths. If she was going to stand up for herself, she had to do it fully. Her mother's eyebrows rose. Husband, she repeated. You remarried? Yes, Emily answered. We've been married for over a year. Shock rippled across her mother's face. Then something else. Regret. Or just the fear of being left out of story. They sat at the small kitchen table. Cups of tea. Awkward questions. Her mother tiptoed around the past like it was glass. I heard there was some trouble at the mall, she said finally. With Jason. People talking to town like this. Emily folded her hands, feeling the imprint of Jason's fingers on her arm, even though they'd left no visible mark this time. He humiliated me in front of everyone, she said plainly. He shoved me. Called me names. Same as always. The only difference is this time, people saw who he really is. Her mother flinched. He called me, she admitted. Said you were making a scene. That you were overreacting. I didn't know what to believe. You believe him, Emily said, not accusing, just stating. Like a weather report. Her mother's eyes shone. I didn't want to think my daughter would exaggerate. Mom, Emily interrupted gently. This isn't about what you wanted. It's about what you chose. And for a long time, you chose his comfort over my safety. Silence sat between them. Heavy. Honest. Daniel remained quiet, presence warm at her side, but not intruding. He was there if she needed him. She was leading. Finally, I can't change the past, her mother whispered. If I could go back. But you can choose now, Emily said. You can choose who you believe, who you stand with, who you call when something happens. Her mother's voice broke. I see you now, she said. Really see you. And I'm sorry I didn't before. Apologies didn't erase bruises. They didn't pay back years of being gaslit into silence. But they mattered. Not because they fixed it all. Because they acknowledged it wasn't her fault. If hearing this final part of Emily's journey, her choosing herself, her drawing boundaries, her standing tall even when apologies come too late, resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed. We tell these stories because somewhere someone is still in the middle of theirs, and your next click might be the one that shows up on their screen when they need it most. When they left the house hours later, the sky had darkened. Streetlights blinked on. The town looked exactly the same. Emily did not. At the gate, her mother clung to her. Will you come back? She asked. Will I see you again? Emily thought of the old pattern, leaving, returning, hoping, breaking. I don't know yet, she answered honestly. That depends on whether this place can be somewhere I'm respected, not just needed. Her mother nodded, tears slipping down. I'll try, she whispered. Trying is a start, Emily said. But I won't dim myself again to make it easier for anyone. On the drive back to the city, she watched the town's lights recede in the rearview mirror. Do you regret going? Daniel asked. She considered it. No, she said. I needed to see that I could stand there without shrinking, that his words don't own me anymore, that my worth doesn't depend on anyone's belief but my own. And do you see it now? He asked softly. She turned her hand over, looking at the ring glinting in the dashboard light, not as a symbol of money or status, but as a reminder. She chose this life. She chose this love. She chose herself. Yes, she said. I do. The next week, a small sign went up near the main entrance of the mall. A partnership between Hale Corporation and a local women's shelter. Funding. Legal support. Emergency housing. Underneath the logo, in simple letters, it read, "No one here is nothing." Emily stood at a distance, watching a young woman read the sign, phone clenched tightly in her hand, as if debating a call she'd been afraid to make. Their eyes met. For a moment, a silent conversation passed between them. "I see you. I survived. You can too." Cruelty is loud. It shouts at malls. It throws bags. It laughs at tears. But self-respect? Self-respect doesn't need to scream. It stands. It walks away. It picks up its own broken pieces and builds a life where no one gets to decide its value ever again. As Emily turned and walked through the mall hand in hand with the man who chose her when she had nothing, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was never nothing. She had always been everything. It just took leaving the wrong hands for her to finally see it. And as for Jason, the last time his name crossed her path, it was in a brief legal update she'd requested be sent to her attorney, not her heart. Charges filed. Ban enforced. Case closed. Not because she won some grand revenge, but because she finally, fully, and irrevocably chose herself.